There we are. Okay. First time I clicked go live, it didn't go live. Now it's going live. Welcome, everybody. Okay, let me know how the volume is today because since I'm streaming directly to YouTube, I think the volume's louder because I noticed the video the other day. It was almost too loud, I thought. So I'm not using my setup. So tell me, how does it sound now? I've got the volume. Actually, I've got the volume up high right now. I'm going to put it lower. Oh, no, I've got the volume up. I've got the volume at the lower setting, actually. This is the lower setting that you normally don't like on the other setup. I'm going to guess it's good here. Yeah, see, that's what I thought. Whenever I use that software that's screwing up, somehow it affects the volume too, and I've got to crank the volume. This is the good volume. See, now TikTok's finally going to have normal volume. Anyway, welcome everybody. It's yesterday I'll tell everybody else too. There was an auction going on online that I didn't want to miss, and there were several items I was bidding on, and it went the entire freaking day, and I had a feeling it was going to go late, and it did. So there was like one or two items that came up during the show, and I did not want to miss them, and I bought them, by the way. So it was worth it, but nonetheless, that's why I was postponing. Sorry about that. But some people asked if I was like, okay, I'm like, I'm okay. I'm just bidding in an auction. So anyway, sorry about that. Let me get actually my temperature down a little bit. Whoa, moving camera. Alexa, lower the temperature 1 degree. Hold on. Still adjusting my camera a little since I hit it, it was moving down a little. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, let me get you. There we go. Let me get TikTok going here. Woo. Anyway, all right. Anyway, welcome everybody. Cheers. I put ice in my mug today, so it's frosty. Very exciting. I know it's better now, Frank. Sorry. All right. There we go. All right. Welcome, TikTokers, YouTubers, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. So welcome everybody. It is, what is it? Friday, May 24th. Hey, Ash. I am John Aravosis. This is my show, The Aravosis Report. We do Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, US. So, yes, very excited. So I was just telling, actually, I'll wait a second for more TikTokers to come on to explain again what happened yesterday. But maybe introduce yourselves really quick, everybody, and then I'll explain yesterday. Thank you, John, for the gift. Anyway. So yes, I will tell you. So what happened? I know, isn't it funny? I'm in my little mirror back there. There you, yeah. You noticed on YouTube. I only noticed that the other day. I was like, oh, I'm in the mirror. Hello, hello. Thank you. Who's this? GMA Vicky and Jen and Kevin with the gifts on. And Monica. Excuse me, almost missed you, Monica. Alan. Okay, I'm missing a couple of you. John S. Thank you, guys. Yes. So Ellie, thank you. So what happened yesterday was there was a really cool auction going on. I'm really into estate auctions, and thank you, Magical. Friend turned me on to these years ago. I was telling Kellum about it, and Kellum was like, "You're buying things from dead people?" And I was like, "Well, yes." Thank you, Pepper. Thank you, Chazak. But it's really, I enjoy it. Basically, when somebody inherits your house, you've got a lot of stuff there, and if you've got nice stuff, they auction it off, and that way the family can make some money rather than just getting rid of a bunch of stuff. I've been going to estate sales, actually been going to them in person in DC and getting cool stuff, including here. This is on YouTube. I'll show you on TikTok. This is a big chunk of petrified wood that I got in an estate sale that made me very happy. Here on TikTok, I will show you. This is the petrified wood right here. I mean, I like this kind of stuff. So it's a very cool piece of petrified wood from Arizona. Very fun. In any case, there was an estate sale yesterday online, but it was also here in Washington, so it's stuff I could pick up. And I will tell you, the thing they did have that I didn't get, but this is why it was important for me to miss the show. They had 2 subway seats from a Parisian metro in 1920, and they had 2 subway seats for sale. Now, the estimate wasn't that high. People ended up bidding up to $1,000. And trust me, I was not going to bid $1,000. Thank you, Swan. But imagine, and I've got a loft style apartment. You guys see how big my apartment, I mean, my apartment isn't big, but it's big. I was imagining 2 subway seats could have been so freaking cool from the Paris subway. So that was the big thing I wanted to bid on. It was too expensive. But nonetheless, I got 3 really cool things, a really cool, I'll get them next week and I will actually do a show and tell. But I got a really cool, 48-inch, over 3 meters, wall hanging marionette from Mali. And I love Mali. I've been to Mali, one of my favorite countries. Very cool thing from Mali. a really neat World War II, thank you, Bash, World War II poster from France that says in French, for France, be a sailor. And it's this really cool poster with this Art Deco frame. It's original. It was expensive, but it wasn't expensive. Very cool. And then the final thing, which is really neat, and again, it was a little bit of a luxury, but a really cool, somewhat rare urn, a water vessel that is used for ceremonies. It was back in Indonesia, but we're talking the Majapahit, I can't pronounce the name, culture back to somewhere between the 10th and the 15th centuries. So we're talking, 900 to 1400 AD. And it's really cool. And they've got two examples of them are on exhibit. One is in the Royal Victoria and Albert Museum in London. I found it online. It's real. Meaning it's actually on exhibit there. The other one, the Philadelphia Museum has, but it's not on exhibit. And very cool. I got it. I literally paid the max I was willing to pay. It was my last bid, and I said, I'm not bidding anymore. And the person that was bidding against me didn't bid. And I was like, yes. Now, yes, Bobster, items can be faked. All I can do is trust the local auction house. We've got, it's one of the big auction houses here in DC. Thank you, Crazy American. What do you do, right? I'm with you. I know you got to be careful with that stuff. I didn't pay $1,000 for it, right? That's when I get really worried. If you're paying $1,000, $2,000 for something, then I get really worried if it's real. It was only a couple $100, but still, or a couple of more than a couple hundred, but it was a very nice piece. So anyway, I will show you guys next week. I'm very excited. I've talked to my sister finally, because I'm going to get her to come out here for a weekend and help me finally put stuff up, because I have stuff from traveling for 30 years, and you can see the stuff on my wall. That's it. That's all I have up in my house is the big French poster behind me and a couple plates from Greece right here. You guys can see a couple, there, these plates on the wall here on TikTok. On YouTube, they're over here. These are plates that my mom got from our uncle, her first cousin was the Minister of Tourism of Greece. Minister of Tourism of Greece, and gave her those in the 1960s. And these beautiful Greek plates of the, antiquities. They're modern, but they're beautiful. And I also love the story that he was the minister, and it's very cool. So anyway, so yes, but that's it that I have in my apartment. I have nothing on the walls anywhere. So Kathy's going to come out and help me out. So, all right, let's get rolling. So anyway, welcome everybody. So that's what I was doing last night. Sorry. What do you do? A dissection table. Thank you, Marie, for the happy Friday. Thank you, Crazy American, for the gift. Vicky, that's funny. Mary says, I have a dissection table from Yale School of Physiology. It has blood runners, an oak table over an inch thick. Okay, that's sick, but cool. But very cool. But yeah, I like this stuff. I love traveling the world. So and from places I care about, like Indonesia, Mali. I was telling my nephew about Mali. Apparently it's not safe anymore, which is really too bad, because the Al-Qaeda in North Africa had been invading for decades. And it's just not safe anymore. Thank you, Hedge. And it's too bad, because Mali is one of the poorest countries in the world, but also one of the most amazing, the nicest people, absolutely nicest people. If it ever becomes safer and you want like a crazy place to go to Mali. It is so different, hotter than hell. It was 43 or 44 degrees Celsius when I was there, which is 110 degrees. Thank you, Suzanne. Unlike Arizona, I don't think it was maybe it was a dry heat. It was horrific. It was horrifically hot, but beautiful country, lovely people. It's not safe now at all. Actually, it's dangerous. They're threatening being taken hostage and everything else. It's very sad. Military junta took over. Very bad. And actually, it was the French that were in Mali, not really the Americans. But unfortunately, Al-Qaeda of North Africa has been taking greater influence in the military. Really sad. It's a country. It has been one of the 5 poorest countries in the world. So you know what? The folks who are running it, not doing that great a job, but the nicest people on the planet. They speak French, at least in the capital. Once you get out of the capital, less French, but nicest freaking people. Anyway, it makes me very sad, because the country's, like many places, has had so many problems. I did not see a lot of weird bugs in Mali. No, maybe it's too hot for them. It was just too freaking hot. Anyway, so welcome everybody. Yes, hi Callum. I was just telling everybody why I was gone yesterday. But let's get rolling here. So, so before I get started, guys, remember tomorrow and this weekend, are the shows I do for the paid subscribers, the monthly subscribers. So tomorrow, Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time US, I will be doing a show for every monthly subscriber. So all of you on TikTok that have SNN next to your name, all of you on YouTube who've got the green, your name in green, I will be doing live on TikTok, Discord, and YouTube. TikTok, Discord, and YouTube. Yep, at 11 a.m. Eastern Time US. And join us. It's our show sort of just for you guys as a thank you. Vlad usually joins us. Vlad in Ukraine, not always, but most of it, I will see. Hopefully he's around tomorrow. And it's just a way of saying thank you. And then Sunday, this Sunday in 2 days, I've got the show I do for the $25 and up subscribers, which you can do on YouTube. You can't do it on TikTok. Actually, maybe I'll set a new category on TikTok for that. That's not they just gave me permission to put new subscription levels. Maybe I'll put a $25 category. I know it's a lot, but a few people do it. And it's so Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern is the show for that. Usually it's a handful of people. It's like 3 or 5 of us. But again, it's your chance to hang out with me. My chance to say thank you. And basically you can hang out for half hour, an hour. Usually we go an hour if people want to. And we just hang out and talk about whatever you want. So again, it's a few people, but it's a nice way to thank them. So just keep that in mind. So tomorrow, any of the subscribers, anybody who wants to subscribe, the mods can tell you how to do it on TikTok and YouTube. Ko-fi is fine. You can do Ko-fi as well. Basically, if you do Ko-fi, Discord, I'm already forgetting, guys. Ko-fi, Discord, Twitch, and I'm forgetting the fourth one. You can actually, what used to be YouTube, you can come via Discord. All you have to do is set up a Discord account, and then you got to link it right to Ko-fi or whatever. Not PayPal. PayPal doesn't have a monthly contribution. No, just those other guys. All right, let's get rolling, guys. So thank you all. Patreon used to be, but we had to disconnect from Patreon 2 years ago because Patreon is run by evil Russian-loving scumbags. Yeah, Patreon went after a bunch of Russian creators, Ukraine creators, including myself, and threatened us. Because they don't want us doing anything that could be perceived as raising money for Ukraine. So I had to cut my link from Patreon to all of you guys because and Patreon was where I was raising most of my money, which really pissed me off. So freaking rude. Just so freaking rude. Annie, you should be able to link to Discord. Why don't you contact me? Are you on Discord where you can at least send me a help, in the sort of the help link on Discord? Because I can ask Syndicate if he can help too, and we can help you out. It should not be hard to do if it's the same account. If it's the same account, it should not be hard to do. Because again, you simply go into you create a Discord account, you go into your settings, and there's a part of the settings called connections of your account, and you look for YouTube, you click YouTube, and you literally log into YouTube, and YouTube communication says, oh yeah, we know this account. As long as you log into the same YouTube account that you're subscribing to, you should be fine. Not available TikTok. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Josh. What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't know what that means, but happy to help you if we can figure it out. Let people, maybe let them, or chime in if the mods see it, they can write it down and maybe tell me if you don't get it right now. Thank you, Succeed, for the gift, but happy to help you. TikTok, we've got multiple registration levels. The problem is TikTok gets a little complicated. TikTok's registration doesn't work very well. So TikTok's integration with Discord is broken. They haven't fixed it in 2 years. I don't know why. It shouldn't be rocket science, but they haven't done it. Thank you, Jetta. So TikTokers, for example, are not able to access our VIP auctions. All the other monthly subscribers can access our VIP. The regular auctions, everybody can, but the TikTok, you can't. Yeah, Josh, I don't know what that means. You gotta, I'm gonna buy a vowel here. You gotta give me more words. Maybe not available 6 months TikTok. I just don't know what that means, kid. You got to give us a longer sentence or two if you can, because again, maybe we can help you figure it out. Thank you, Tony, for the gift. All right, let me get rolling, guys. So today is day 820 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. We've got our coffee talks this weekend, as I said. And if you can, thank you, Ava. Yes, well, thank you, Ava, for the gift. I was just going to say, if you can give gifts, please do. The gifts. Oh, if TikTok is taken down, where do we go to see you? Oh, I'm sorry, Josh. I didn't understand that. Yeah, okay. Sorry, Josh was asking if TikTok ever gets banned in the US, where can you find me? And yes, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on, well, YouTube's the big one. YouTube is where I'm doing the other big show right now. So I would say go find me on YouTube. The mods can put my YouTube name, my handle in the comments right here. Otherwise, you can go to my profile on TikTok, click the Linktree link, which is the link there. Thank you, Ernie. And you'll see my YouTube link right there. I broadcast live on YouTube at the same time I do this on TikTok. And the good thing with YouTube actually is that YouTube, thank you, Ernie, and thank you, Josh, YouTube keeps a record of the show. So my lives on TikTok, they don't broadcast. And they broadcast it, but they don't save it. And I don't know why. On YouTube, it's actually a saved copy. So you can go back later and watch them, which is nice. So anyway, I'm sorry, Josh. I didn't understand that's what you meant. Okay. Yes, John Aravosis DC. That is correct. All right, guys, let's get rolling. So yes, please do keep the gifts coming. Remember, I do this for a living. I do it full time. Your gifts pay the bills, so thank you. All right, let's get rolling. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg. I've got a lot of news today because there were some stories yesterday that I didn't want to miss, and they're still timely. So from yesterday's news, I'm going to tell you these as well. But today's news, Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, said today that NATO countries need to reconsider their policies of not letting Ukraine use weapons from our countries to attack Russia proper. Meaning, the U.S. and Germany, it used to be the U.K. before. The U.K. looks like they've changed their mind. But the U.S. and Germany, among others, have told the Ukrainians, you can use our weapons to attack the Russians in Ukraine. You cannot use our weapons to attack Russian troops in Russia. It is also possible that the Germans, I believe, have told the Ukrainians they can't even use their weapons to attack the Russians in Ukraine if it is Ukrainian Crimea that the Ukrainians are trying to attack. To get the Russians out of there, they're not allowed to attack. Now, why does this matter? Because guess what? Russian troops aren't just in Ukraine. Russian troops are in Russia. Russia borders Ukraine. You've got Russian troops in Russia that are firing into Ukraine. You've got Russian troops in Russia that are attacking Ukraine, trying to take some of the border towns in the Northeast. You've been hearing a lot about these battles in the last couple of weeks in a small town called Vovchansk, right, near Kharkiv, Ukraine. That is a border town, and the Russians are attacking it from Russia. Okay? Thank you, Jen. Well, guess what? Ukraine can't use our weapons to attack back the Russians that are invading them. So if all the Russians have to do is sit on their side of the border and fire, and Ukraine cannot use any American or German weapons to fire back. We can't use our artillery. We can't use anything, or they can't use any of our artillery or anything. Thank you, Jen, again. So Stoltenberg is saying that maybe it's time for NATO to rethink that. You know, it was time for NATO to rethink that 2 years and 4 months ago, but whatever. I mean, I'm glad, but this is just, it's so, as Tom Clark just said, tying their hands behind their back. We have been doing this to Ukraine from day one, guys. I will tell you, this is not the way to run foreign policy. It is not the way to win a war. The last thing you do is go into a battle and say, okay, we're going to fight this. We're a little afraid of winning, so we're going to give you some weapons, but not all weapons. The weapons we give you, we're going to wait a year or two to give you the good ones. And when we give you the good ones, thank you, adventurers, we're going to give you the less quality good ones, like the ATACMS missiles. We waited 2 years to get, or a year to give them, and then we gave them the shitty ones that didn't go as far and that were older and stuff. Thank you, Jason. Then we waited another year to give them the good ones, right? Then you've got the French and Germans, or the French and Germans, the French and Brits, actually. Thank you, adventurers. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Monica. The French and Brits actually gave some good cruise missiles the Ukrainians could use. The Americans haven't. The Germans are refusing to give cruise missiles. I mean, every step of the way, we have been giving them, either refusing to give them the good stuff, or we give them the good stuff, but we only give them a little, like one or two. A couple months later, we give them a couple more, or we just drag it out and drag it out. Or, like I just explained, thank you, Wayne, we put restrictions on the Ukrainians where we tell them, well, we'll give you weapons, but we don't want you attacking the Russians in Russia. Or the Germans don't want you attacking Russia in Crimea, Ukrainian Crimea. So you can't even attack the Russians to kick them out of your own country, according to the Germans. How do you win a war that way? Thank you, Jen. Why, Mary asks? Because they're afraid of Vladimir Putin. And I'm sorry, Biden is to blame on this as well. Biden and the German chancellor, among others, are afraid of Vladimir Putin's nuclear threats. Now, the German chancellor, I think, is worried about money, too. He's thinking about after the war. He wants to make a lot of money from the Germans with the business between Germany and Russia. But also, Putin's nuclear threats scare them. It's ridiculous. Thank you, Vicky. They shouldn't scare them at all. We've got nukes, too. I couldn't give a flying rat's anything about what Putin says about nukes at this point. Thank you, Ellie. They bluff. They lie. And we've got nukes too, right? I mean, the way you deter a nuclear war is having your own nuclear weapons and making it clear that if you use yours, we're going to use ours. And that's it. And guess what? You're never going to have a nuclear war. I mean, within reason, you know, thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Oliver. But Biden's afraid of Putin. He's afraid, oh my God, what if Putin gets angry? What if he uses nukes? So from the beginning, Biden has been pulling punches. He's been helping Ukraine, a big deal. Biden's helped Ukraine a lot, much more than Trump would. Trump would have given up on Ukraine right away because Trump sides with Russia. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mary. But Biden never wanted to win fully. Biden's a good guy, but he's better than Trump by far, better than RFK Jr. sides with Russia as well. Biden at least sides with Ukraine, but Biden has been afraid of Putin the entire time. You know? Well, no, and the nuclear threat has been in the air for decades. Jack Riley says the nuclear threat has been in the air for decades. Yes. And guess what? We didn't buckle down to the Soviet Union. We stood up to the Soviets in the face of their nuclear threat. When it comes to Russia, we suddenly got scared. Like, oh my God, right? Obama got scared. Syria, the red line in Syria. You know, Obama got scared when Putin invaded Crimea, and Biden got scared when Putin invaded Eastern Ukraine. And it's as if nuclear weapon, I mean, again, young people will often ask us about this, and they'll often be like, oh, but he's making nuclear threats. Doesn't that scare you? And I'm like, I was around when the Soviet Union made nuclear threats too. I don't like them, but this is not new. Like you're kind of lucky you lived in as much as young people complain, oh my God, the world is so bad. You people haven't lived under the threat of nuclear destruction for 30 years. The rest of us did. You actually grew up in a world where nobody thought you were going to get nuked. The rest of us, we did. We at least considered it. We had to have plans. A lot of people practiced it. People in the Western US had to actually practice hiding in case of a nuclear attack. People in schools did this. They would have nuclear attack drills, okay? This is the kind of stuff people went through that are older than you. But yeah, remember drop and roll, duck and cover? But the thing is, it also taught us we did not live in mortal fear of the Russians nuking us. And frankly, for me, it didn't scare me because I knew we'd nuke them back. So the Russians would have to be crazy to attack us, you know? I mean, that's the point with all of this is if you stand up to somebody, if you make it clear that you're going to hit back just as hard, typically they don't hit you because they know you're going to get them. When they hit you is when they think they're going to get away with it. And that's what concerns me about Ukraine. So anyway, or what concerns me about the US and German policy towards Ukraine is we've made it clear to the Russians that, you know, we're a little afraid of you. Callum, that made me laugh. I love that. Someone writes, I don't like you, but you keep popping up in my feed. Yet you came and visited, yet you decided to write comments. It's like, here's an idea. You could block me or just go, it's TikTok. You could just kind of scroll and go away. It's not rocket science. Anyway. Oh, hey, Cossack. Good to see you. All right. Let's move on. Putin is playing PR games again, public relations games. He claimed today, or his people are claiming today, oh, Vladimir Putin very much wants peace. It's like, yeah, sure he does. And he's happy to have negotiations because he wants the war to end. Now, he's trying to short circuit this peace conference that's happening next month in Switzerland. The international, it's sort of the fourth one, I think, at this point that's been held. And because it's coming up, Putin's trying to make it seem like, oh, he's for peace. Also, he wants to make it seem like he's for peace because he's trying to get aid to Ukraine killed. He wants all the NATO countries to go, oh my God, Putin wants peace. You know, Putin wants peace. Why aren't we just, you know, stop funding Ukraine and we can have peace, right? Well, of course, as always, Putin's people decided to let their terms for peace be known. And you'll be very surprised to hear, thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Prince Phils, that in order to get peace, the Putin people are saying, oh, but Ukraine has to give up all of its territory. All that 18% of Ukraine that Russia controls, Ukraine has to literally give it to Russia and say it's Russia now. And you need to get rid of Zelensky and put in a puppet government that bows to Putin. Other than that, the Russians are happy to negotiate. And it's like, well, that's not really negotiating, saying, give me everything, is what the Russians are saying. Stop fighting. Stop trying to get your country back and kick out your president and put a puppet instead, and we'll stop fighting. Here's the other problem. I mean, that's surrender, as Snowblade just said. It is surrender. The other problem is that the Russians are going to be back in 5 years. Putin's going to be back in 5 years. He's going to build up his military again, and he's going to invade to take the rest of Ukraine. The Russians believe that Ukraine is not an independent country. They believe that they're actually Russians, that the Ukrainians are Russians. And they're Russians. Literally, I remember the beginning of the war reading this. And the Russian government, Russian government people were saying that Ukrainians are Russians who simply don't realize it. They've been brainwashed, and the Russians said it was their job to help. Um, uh, what was the word? It wasn't convince. It was basically to help, reveal to the confused Ukrainians that they're actually Russians and that Ukraine doesn't exist. I mean, it was the most pompous, arrogant thing you could ever imagine. They want to take Ukraine back. Russia is not happy that the Soviet Union dissolved 30 years ago. Thank you, user 336. Russia basically ran the Soviet Union. Soviet Union, big, evil empire of dictators. I've been there. Horrific, horrific dictatorship. And they held Eastern Europe hostage for 50 years. Horrific dictatorships in Europe. Invaded several times, killed a lot of people, especially in Hungary and Czechoslovakia, who were basically young people, demanding freedom. In any case, we were getting on what we were getting. I'm trying to think what we were getting on with this. Oh, with Putin and the war. So the Soviet Union dissolves in 1991. And Russia pretty much ran it. It was a coalition of 15 countries, but it was really Russia holding hostage 14 other countries, more or less. Like Belarus, the people were held hostage, but the dictator of Belarus, would have been happy with this. But otherwise, thank you, Mustard. The Soviet Union dissolves, and the Russians get pissed off because the Russians pretty much controlled the Soviet Union, and the Russians lost 14 of their hostages. Ukraine, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia. All their hostages got away and became independent countries again, or for the first time. Well, the Russians didn't like that. The Russians want their hostages back. That's what's going on. That's why they're invading Ukraine. That's why they've invaded Ukraine twice now. They invaded in 2014, grabbed a chunk. They invaded in 2022, grabbed a chunk. They're going to invade in 5 years and grab another chunk if Ukraine agrees to this peace deal. The peace deal isn't enough. Anyway, thank you, Mary. All right, let's move on. Some horrific Russian attacks in the last 2 days. The latest numbers I saw, but it may be higher. At least 7 people were killed in Kharkiv, Ukraine, injured at least 20. The Russians destroyed a book printing house that was very famous for publishing Russian dissidents and others. The Russians blew it up. Again, it looks like they blew it up on purpose. I mean, guys, the Russians targeted a printing house, a publisher of books. They blew up, killed a bunch of people. And I was watching on CNN yesterday, the first responders, the paramedics and everything who came to rescue the people in Kharkiv who were killed, or the people who were at least, injured and still alive, their work was hampered because, and I've told you this before, but CNN repeated it yesterday. The problem for the Ukrainian firefighters, for example, or emergency workers, ambulances that come and try to help people when the Russians attack, is they have to be very careful trying to help people because the Russians have a history of attacking a civilian building. They wait 10 to 15 minutes for the ambulances to arrive, maybe 20 minutes. And once the ambulances are there and the firefighters are there, the Russians bomb it again in order to kill all the ambulance workers and the firefighters. It's called a double tap, exactly what Ash and Bobster just said. It's called a double tap. It's something that actually Al-Qaeda was very famous for. Osama bin Laden, very famous for his double taps. They did this, I think it was the U.S. Embassy bombing. Was it Kenya? I'm trying to remember. But it was a famous U.S. Embassy bombings, 2 of them actually in 1996 or so. And they bombed the embassy from the outside, killed like a couple hundred people. It was pretty horrific. Most of the people they killed were Africans waiting in line for visas, of course, because they don't care who they kill. But they attacked. They waited a few minutes until people came running to help all the people in the rubble, and then they bombed it again. It was Kenya. I'm pretty sure it was Kenya. Yeah. They bombed it again once all the people came in to rescue the people in the blown out, bombed building. They then blew the people who came up to rescue them. This is what Al-Qaeda used to do. It's what the Russians do. And it's what they're doing in Ukraine, and CNN reported on it again the other night. Again, I tell you this so you understand who it is we're dealing with. We are not dealing with nice, rational, not rational, they're rational, but we're not dealing with nice sort of moral, ethical governments that are willing to sort of strike a fair deal. They're not. All right. Some good news in the Northeast. This was interesting. This was via the Kyiv Independent, quoting the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces, General Syrsky, who was the new guy that was appointed several months ago. Reportedly, Russian troops in eastern Ukraine, northeastern Ukraine, in Volchansk. This is the region near Kharkiv and also near Russia. Here's Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. This is the town up here where the Russians have been trying to get this town on the border we've been talking about. Well, according to Ukraine's top general, Russian troops are completely bogged down in street battles for the town of Vovchansk, have suffered very heavy losses. The Russian troops are now deploying their reserves from different sectors, but failed to support active assault operations in the region. So that's good. The Russians have also switched to active defense near the village of Lipsty. So basically, the Russians are going more on the defensive. What the Ukrainians claimed a week ago appears to be true, that they claimed they had slowed the Russians down and it basically stopped the big counteroffensive. Let's see, but hopefully it's true. Thank you, Soldier. Thank you, Championess. Politico F-16 update. The first batch of Ukrainian pilots training on F-16s in Arizona in the U.S. have finished their training and have now been sent to Europe to continue their training there. A total of at least 60 F-16 planes have been promised to Europe from Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Belgium. Quick sip. Thank you, Courtney, for the gift. Please keep the gifts coming, guys. Also, remember, you could do subscriptions too. Do consider doing subscriptions. You can either subscribe yourself, or you can also, actually, we got a lot of you are subscribers on YouTube today. It's like a sea of green. Thank you, guys. And of course, you guys with SNN next to your name are the subscribers on TikTok. If you subscribe, you get fun little emojis, and your name gets a thing on it, like you're green on YouTube, or you guys get SNN next to your name on TikTok, which lets me know that you're a paid subscriber. 60 F-16s, 60. So it's better than that, Courtney. Yeah, 60 F-16s have been promised, at least to Ukraine. But please do consider becoming a monthly subscriber. It helps me out a lot. It helps me kind of have a more regular income because I do this full time and pays the bills, to be honest. But also, you can buy gift subscriptions, which is very cool. Thank you, Bad Boy, for the gift. Who is this? Is it Chazak too? And Chazak as well. Thank you, guys. But you can buy gift certificates, which is very cool. I don't make anything off of endorsements. I'd love to, but I don't. But yeah, please consider you can do gift subscriptions for people where you donate a monthly subscription that somebody gets for a month. It's very cool. You can do it on TikTok or YouTube, and YouTube or TikTok will automatically give it out to someone in the comments, and therefore they can join us for a month. Thank you, Ryan. And that way you get to come to the weekend show and that kind of stuff. So thank you. All right, a little more here. So, New York Times article today that is, good news-ish, but also incredibly annoying. The New York Times reports that the American Secretary of State, our foreign minister, Anthony Blinken, has changed his mind about Ukraine. Let me be more specific about the American policy banning Ukraine from using our weapons to attack within Ukraine, within Russia. So basically, we have a policy where we give Ukraine, for example, artillery units, right? Artillery shells, but artillery guns. And the Ukrainians cannot fire our artillery at the Russians in Russia. So if the Russians are right across the border firing at Ukraine, the Ukrainians cannot fire back with our artillery shells because the U.S. is scared of angering Putin. Blinken, our Secretary of State, according to the New York Times, is now thinking perhaps this isn't a very good idea 2 years and 4 months into the war, right? It is incredibly annoying. He still has not raised it to Biden, so this has not gone to Biden's level. So honestly, to some degree, this article is a bit of a BS article, really. I mean, our Secretary of State thinks maybe this isn't a good idea, but he hasn't told Biden, so Biden isn't changing his mind. Like, okay, what's the point then? Now, what this suggests to me is typically when stuff like this leaks out, it's months and months and months later that Biden then changes his mind. This is like some weird beginning. I don't know why Biden does this. Maybe he's trying to get the Russians used to it, but he does this weird putting the policy out there, but not really. And then 6 months later, Biden finally changes his mind, or 9 months later when it comes to ATACMS, things like that. So yeah, it's good, I guess, that the Ukrainians, or I should say that Blinken, our Secretary of State, maybe is coming around on our policy, tying Ukraine's hands behind their back. But it's a little late 2 years into the war. And frankly, he still hasn't even told Biden, he hasn't gotten Biden on board yet. So what's the freaking point? This administration needs to really decide if they want to win or not, because I don't think they do. Thank you, Jeremy. They want a tie. And a tie is a really good way to get a lot of Ukrainians killed and for America to spend a hell of a lot of money for the next 20 years in a war we don't win. So I'm getting more water for the dogs. I forgot to get her water. It's a really stupid way to fight a war. Really stupid way. And I see we have a troll on TikTok who says, fight your own war. Well, I'm sorry, Boris. Are you getting upset that we're actually helping people free themselves from your gutless dictatorship? I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, I, you know, it's always the bullies that tell you to stay out, right? It's always it's the guy attacking the woman who tells you, fight your own war. Why are you helping her? Right? Why are you stopping me from attacking her? Right? And of course, the Russians would be the first people who say, why are you helping countries that we're running over and committing genocide in? We're literally stealing the Russia, literally. Putin is under indictment from the International Criminal Court. An arrest warrant has been issued for him for kidnapping Ukrainian children and trying to brainwash them into thinking they're Russians and then handing them over to Russian citizens. They're literally stealing Ukrainian children as war trophies, guys. Why would anybody try to stop that? Well, because you know what? Because we're trying to do a good thing. And no, this has nothing to do with Israel, because with Israel, I got news for you. The Palestinians have been murdering people for 75 years, and the Jews have also, and the Israelis, I should say, have also been killing people. So if you want to talk about the Middle East, we can, but you're not going to be happy, because I don't put up with bullshit on my show. And I am happy to tell the truth objectively. And when you talk about the Middle East, you've got two powers that have been killing each other for 75 years. So don't even go there on Netanyahu and the Jews. Don't even go there. Because the Palestinians have been committing horrific acts of terror for 75 years. They don't have clean hands either. Not even close. In Ukraine's case, I got news for you. Ukraine has done nothing wrong. America did nothing wrong. Europe did nothing wrong. The Russians decided that they didn't like that their little dictatorship went away in 1991 and they lost the Soviet Union and the world wasn't scared of them anymore. And 14 other countries that the Russians held hostage got to be free, and the Russians didn't like it. And they now want to get their little hostages back, including Ukraine, including Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. So that's why we go and help, because we're not going to sit there when the Russians go and try to take over their neighbors. Ukraine shares none of the blame. Ukraine has clean hands in this fight. The Palestinians do not have clean hands in this fight. And the Israelis have also done a lot of bad stuff, especially in the last 20 years. Netanyahu's done a lot of bad stuff. And guess who else has? The Palestinians, who have committed horrific acts of terror for 75 years. So don't even, it pisses me off, because the thing is, don't try to politically appropriate the Ukrainian fight. Don't try to steal what's happening to the Ukrainians for your own personal partisan issues. This has nothing to do with the Middle East. It has zero to do with the Middle East. And again, when you talk about the Middle East, you've got a complicated battle that goes back not just 75 years, goes back like a couple thousand years of basically crazy people fighting each other for thousands of years. In Ukraine, that's not what you've got. You've got one big bully that got knocked down in size, and he doesn't like being smaller anymore. So he's decided to go invade his neighbors and take over. And the neighbors did nothing to invite it. The neighbors did nothing for Putin to come in. Putin actually did try. Putin, by the way, has tried to compare it to the Middle East in some ways. Putin literally sits there and goes, "Oh, the Ukrainians have been conducting acts of terror. They've killed tens of thousands of Russians." No, they haven't. Literally, they haven't. It's insane. But the Russian government as a policy lies. Thank you, Championess, for the tiny diny. All right, let's move on. Hungary, our other favorite country. So this is great. Hungary, Orban. So Hungary was one of the former Soviet hostages, one of the hostages of Russia for almost 50 years. When the Russians, after World War II, oh, that's my dog playing with her toy. Wait, where? Oh, there she is. You guys can, at least you guys on YouTube got to see her briefly. The Hungarians were overrun by the Russians after World War II. The Russians installed a communist dictatorship. She cracks me up. I can't. Oh my God. Now I'll show the TikTokers. There she is. She's trying to play. I can't play with you right now. She just grabs her toy and squeezes it and then brings it up to me and goes like, "Let's play." The Hungarians, invaded by the Russians, the Soviets, take over Eastern Europe, install communist dictatorships in all of Eastern Europe. Horrific. Go check out the history. You don't have to trust me. Horrific dictatorships the Russians imposed on all of Eastern Europe. Hungary was one of the places. The Hungarians had a freedom movement, 1956. Students and others rising up against the communist government, not just a communist government, but communist dictatorships. Thank you, Doughboy, for the gifts. What did the Russians do? They sent in tanks and killed everybody. This is what the Russians do. Go to today. Hungary has now elected and re-elected a Putin lover, a guy who is anti-NATO, he's anti-Europe, anti-European Union, and he literally sides 1956, 1968 was Czechoslovakia. Misho, 1956 was Hungary. The Russians did the same thing in Czechoslovakia in 1968. Again, students and others trying to raise up and be free, and they came in and killed them all with their tanks because it's what they do. Thank you, Fred. Well, this time around, Hungary now, and they've reelected, which really pisses me off. They've reelected this guy Orban, who is a Putin. Now, mind you, we did it too. In America, we elected a Putin crony too. Somebody who loves Putin, hates Europe, hates NATO, hates the European Union, hates funding for Ukraine, has caused all sorts of trouble with funding for Ukraine. Orban, the leader of Hungary, has, he just killed, again, the next aid package for Europe to Ukraine. He just killed it today. The Europeans, I was telling you this week, had finally reached a deal to take some of the profits from Russian money that's been freed and give some money to Ukraine for weapons. They were about to do a $2 billion arms or 2 billion euro arms sort of deal with Ukraine. Hungarians are killing it again because Putin doesn't want it. Hungary tried to kill, Orban tried to kill Sweden and Finland from joining NATO because Putin didn't want it. Well, now he's saying today, honestly, the guy needs to be kicked out of, he needs to be kicked out of the European Union too, but he really needs to be kicked out of NATO. Today, the Hungarians have the nerve to say they're having their lawyers look at, first of all, I love this. We still want to be a part of NATO, but we're having our lawyers look at whether we don't have to help out things like Ukraine and those other battles outside of NATO that we don't think are, because we don't think the Russians will ever invade. So we're not worried about them. And they want to carve out a special relationship with NATO where we still have, by the way, we still have to defend them if they get attacked. We still have to use our nukes and our bodies to defend the Hungarians if they get attacked, but they can decide maybe they don't want to come and do other stuff if they don't want. So they want like NATO light. Honestly, we need to kick their asses out of NATO. We need to absolutely kick them out of NATO. Supposedly Hungary is doing some good things in Kosovo. They're doing some good things in Iraq. Honestly, guys, I don't care what they're doing. And I don't mean to mock the Hungarians, but who the hell cares? I mean, I would be very surprised if Hungary, the great military of Hungary that we all know so much about, that we all hear so much about, that the great Hungarian military can't be replaced in Kosovo and Iraq. Really? Really? I'm gonna wager that, because mind you, you never hear about the Hungarian military ever. You hear about the Norwegian military, they're great. You hear about the British military, they're great. You hear about the Polish military, they're great. You hear about the Swedes, they're great too. Great planes. The Hungarians, you never, ever hear anything about. I mean, I don't mean to knock the Hungarians. You're nice people, but you elect bad leaders. Then again, we do too sometimes. But for the Hungarians to think we're going to defend their asses if they get invaded, but they're going to sit there and be the bad man of NATO, and they want now a special agreement that makes them kind of NATO light? Seriously. I mean, the problem here is, and again, I've worked in politics for 40 years, mostly in Washington, D.C., so I get it. Nobody wants Hungary to leave. And what I mean by that is it's like the Brits leaving in Brexit when they left the European Union, right? Once one group leaves, one country leaves, other countries might consider leaving too, right? You don't want an alliance where people start leaving because then your alliance becomes smaller and less important, right? As time goes on. So you don't want that, right? You want the alliance to grow, if anything. Except at some point, NATO, I don't think there's a risk of NATO getting smaller, right? The European Union takes a little more explanation. It takes a little more of an intellectual explanation to say, okay, we have this economic market. You join together. You can, travel across borders freely and live in each other's countries. We use the same currency. We promise you that's going to be good for you, even though you think it might not be. We're at a common currency, the euro. What we throw out your old currency. We're going to use the euro. That takes some analysis to know, is that really going to be good for you economically, right? I mean, people can argue about that, right? Maybe you keep your own currency. The Brits kept their own, right? Even though they were a part of the European Union, they kept the pound. I can see an intellectual argument about the economics of joining the European Union or leaving the European Union. But NATO, right? You join NATO because you don't want the Russians attacking you. You leave NATO and you're open to the Russians attacking you. That's the bottom line in Europe right now. That's the bottom line. And I can't imagine most European countries saying, most current NATO members going, we don't care if the we don't care if the Russians attack. We're not worried about the Russians. I mean, Hungarians aren't worried about the Russians because they're Russian stooges at this point, right? But my point here in saying this is, I'm not really worried about Hungary losing NATO, or Hungary leaving NATO, and other NATO countries going, hey, this worked out really well for the Hungarians. They got to leave NATO, and in exchange for leaving NATO, they no longer get American weapons. They no longer get European weapons. Instead, they're having to buy crappy Russian weapons. And instead of France, Germany, the UK, America, Canada, Poland, Norway, Sweden coming to their rescue, Germany, if they get into a war, they're now going to have Russia, Russia, Belarus, Libya, Syria, and Cuba, and Venezuela come to defend them. You know what? Go for it, Hungary. I mean, and Serbia, exactly. Serbia. I almost said Serbia. Serbia too, right? Nobody in the world would look at this and go, yeah, I've got the American, French, British nuclear umbrella, the Germans, the Scandinavians, great militaries, the Poles, really good military. Right? I've got all of these militaries. Italians got a good military. They're going to defend me. I'd rather have the Syrians and the Libyans instead. There is, I think, a 0% chance that anybody in NATO looks at this and says, yeah, that's a good idea. And this is also why it's bullshit for Turkey too. Turkey plays games too. You know, Turkey's not leaving. Turkey, by the way, Turkey's not leaving because of Greece as well. Turkey can't afford to leave NATO and have the Greeks be the only member of NATO now in that area and have NATO basically beef up the Greeks. And then what do the Turks do? And then if the Turks ever attack Greece, because honestly, little bit of something in the Turkish mind about attacking Greece someday because of the disputes with the islands and things, with minerals and everything in the Aegean Islands. If Turkey leaves NATO and Turkey decides to cause trouble with Greece, then it's at war with the U.S. Turkey can't do it. If Turkey decides to cause trouble with Greece right now, it gets confusing because Turkey and Greece are both NATO members. So it's confusing, right? Turkey leaves NATO, and then they've just declared war on NATO if they leave. So they're not going to leave either. Thank you, Vicky. In any case, yeah, the Hungarians need to go. I've kind of had it with this. And this is where, again, Trump, on the other hand, would kick everybody out of NATO except Hungary, and he'd invite Russia in because, again, Trump is pro-Russia and he's anti-NATO and anti-American. So that doesn't help. But Biden, honestly, I wish was a little ballsier. Sometimes I wish Biden was a little more Reagan-esque and just tell the Hungarians, literally, just to say, you know what? Go fuck yourselves. Seriously, you want to leave? Here's the door. Walk out. You want to join Russia? Thank you, Flickr. And the great Russian-Belarusian defense coalition? Make my day. Because Hungary is never going to be defending America if we get attacked. But America is going to have to defend Hungary, and they can go F themselves. So yeah, he is a troll, by the way. Yes. Woo, that one's going. Anyway, 2025. His years are changing. Manny, you need to sort of get your like trolling down, which at least, by the way, that's classic. He probably wasn't even an American. First, the guy wrote Trump 2024. Then he wrote Trump 2025 because he wasn't sure when the American elections are. The elections are actually this year, but if you're Russian, I guess you don't really know that. Thank you, Timothy. That was very funny. He couldn't even get the year right for the American elections. Okay. They're not sending us their best and brightest trolls, my friends. They're really not. All right, a little more news. I don't want to go through all these stories because there's a ton of stories today. U.S. announced a new weapons package for Ukraine, including HIMARS ammunition, some new, high demand artillery rounds, mortar rounds, tow missiles, javelins, anti-tank systems. This one is important. Ukraine hit a number of big targets in the last couple of days, actually. There actually was a lot of news yesterday, so I apologize for not being here because several of the stories I kept over for today because they were good stories. The Ukrainians hit a Russian S-400 air defense system with cluster munitions. I just saw the video, and it's glorious. These rockets going left and right all over the place. The cluster munitions are basically the bombs that are made up of 100 bomblets. So a bomb comes, opens up, and all these little bomblets come out and fall all over the place. The S-400, really important. Thank you, Flower Power. Really important really important missile system for the Russians for air defense. Big deal. So knocking this out is a big deal for Ukraine. Additionally, Ukrainian Air Force and rocket and artillery forces hit 2 Russian artillery pieces, 2 drone control stations, 2 command posts, an electronic warfare station, and they took out an Su-25 fighter jet, which is a big deal. This is the 6th Su-25 jet the Ukrainians have shot down this month. That's interesting to me too. When I hear things like that, it often makes me wonder what's going on. And what I mean is, this is another one of those instances where I go, okay. I mean, actually, for Mustard or Callum or anybody else who's here, Ash, you seem to be up on the military stuff. Anybody who's really up on the military stuff, what's going on that they've taken down 6 Russian Su-25 jets this month? I mean, is this an F-16 doing this? I hear numbers like that and I go, that's interesting. Like something changed. Courtney just said the same thing. I think they got some F-16s. It just sounds like something changed when all of a sudden you get this massive amount of Russian planes going down or whatever it is. Because also the Russians tend to adjust to whatever we've done, whatever new tactic we've got, they adjust to. So I'm just kind of wondering, good intel? Maybe it is, Bo. Maybe it's just good intel. Mustard says man-pads, F-16 sounds plausible. Yeah, I mean, very interesting. Very new ammunition, maybe, but you're taking down planes. I mean, potentially that's anti-aircraft stuff. Emil's saying Iris-T or Stingers. I mean, it could be, some of the like handheld missile system, anti-missile systems. I don't know. Oh, well, actually, possible. Max Tarek says maybe they developed their own plane or they made missiles. It's also possible the Ukrainians developed their own missile system. Who knows? Hey, Lady of Portland, glad you like my stuff. Appreciate that. Yes, and NE says there was a rumor that an F-16 was seen flying in Ukraine by the Russians. I mean, there have been rumors for several weeks now that F-16s may have arrived in Ukraine. There's no evidence to back it up. There's no hard rumor. It's not like military friends are telling me, or it's not like that. But there's just been chatter among people who are smart saying, this is weird. It's almost as if they've got some F-16s already. I don't know. Now, as Nicola says, wouldn't there be videos of F-16s? I would think it would be very hard to hide an F-16. I would think civilians might see it and hear it, right? I mean, hear it for sure. You'd think wouldn't the Russians announce it? If Ukrainians had F-16s, wouldn't the Russians announce it and go, oh my God, look what they're doing, escalation, NATO, now you better be scared, right? It doesn't strike me like the Russian move. No, well, I mean, especially once you fly the plane. I mean, once you fly the plane, you're not really hiding it anymore. You've literally flew the plane in the air. I mean, Emil says, I wouldn't be surprised. F-16s have some medium range missiles hitting aircraft from far away. They got something. Flying Medic says it seems like they've gotten an increase in technology, weaponry, ammunition. It does make me wonder. Will Taiwan become like Ukraine? Maybe, Hero. There is, I mean, I wouldn't say there's any more concern today than yesterday, but there is absolute concern in the U.S. that the Chinese could invade Taiwan sometime in the next 4 to 6 years. And if they do, we're going to war with China. And as long as the Chinese know that, there is a chance they don't invade Taiwan. If the Chinese think there's a chance they don't go to war with America over Taiwan, the Chinese might just invade. That is why I get upset at Donald Trump when he makes horrific comments. For example, Trump has been talking about pulling U.S. troops out of South Korea as well. He doesn't understand the issues. He's not motivated by America or American national defense or American national security. Trump is motivated by his own pocketbook, his own ego and his own pocketbook. And it worries me because I think Republicans, now here's the only thing, Republicans would demand that Trump go to war with China if China invaded Taiwan. That's the only good thing, is that even Trump, I'm not convinced that even Trump, and Trump has a psychotic hold on the Republican Party. It's like a cult when this man speaks, right? He totally turned the Republican Party on its head on national security. Now they like America's enemies. Now they don't like the troops. They don't like freedom. They don't like fighting abroad and defending freedom and helping our allies. They don't like NATO. Trump turned it on its head. But the one thing I wonder if even Trump wouldn't be successful in doing is convincing the Republicans that the Chinese Communist Party is actually okay, and it would be okay for China to invade and take Taiwan. Republicans would lose their collective heads. Republican Party in this country hates China. I say hates China, I mean hates the Chinese Communist Party. My dog wants more water. She's in kind of a water mood lately. So that would be very interesting to me. You want a little more, crazy dog? All right, a little more. All right. Oops, and that would be her dog toy that I just stepped on. So I don't know. That's the one thing I will say this. If you're China, though, you're still going, I know Republicans don't want us invading Taiwan. Democrats don't. But Trump, honestly, give Trump a new hotel in Beijing. He's going to be fine with you invading Taiwan. The problem is, would the Republican Party let Trump do that? Would they let Trump get away with doing that? Basically telling the Chinese it's okay to invade. If you're China, I don't want there to be any ambiguity. I don't want the Chinese to be having this discussion we're having. Typically in China, whether it's President Biden or any Republican president before, the Chinese government knew if they invaded Taiwan, it meant war with America. Hey, Robert, thank you. I was just looking at my dino pieces the other day, by the way. Thank you. Good to see you again. Thanks for the gift. But the Chinese government always knew if they invaded Taiwan, it was war with America. With Donald Trump, it's not guaranteed that it's war with America, just like it's not guaranteed in Europe. Trump, by the way, thank you, Magnus. Trump also made clear with NATO that he wouldn't necessarily get involved and help NATO countries if Russia, he invited Russia to invade NATO, right? I mean, if I were China, I'd be wondering if Trump would defend Taiwan. Thank you, Billy, and thank you, Vicky. And the very fact that the Chinese would be unsure if Trump would defend Taiwan is a reason China would attack Taiwan. It is a reason that at least maybe it wouldn't be the reason to attack. But if China is going to absolutely do an analysis, any country, brother, this is not just China, this is any country. Any country that's looking to invade its neighbor is going to do a cost-benefit analysis. Thank you, Lola. Thank you, Lola, for multiple gifts there. Cost-benefit analysis meaning I'm China and I'm thinking of invading Taiwan. I have to decide a couple things. A, can I win? B, how costly will it be even if I can win, right? How much damage am I going to face? How hard is it going to be? How many men am I going to lose? How much money am I going to spend? How many years is it going to take? Well, thank you, cool. The issue there, you need to get back to me on that stuff, Robert. I want to go to one of those digs, that. Very cool. Right, but the Chinese need to make an analysis of, can we win in Taiwan and what's it going to cost us economically, militarily, boats, men, everything else? Thank you, Chef. How long is it going to go? Trump makes it less costly. If you're doing an analysis in China, you go, under Biden, we know we're going to war. Under most Republicans, we know we're going to war. Under Trump, maybe we don't go to war. And if we don't go to war, it means invading Taiwan might work. Thank you, Chef. Thank you, Pato. Cool, Rebecca, and cool. That makes it more likely for a war to break out. Thank you, Lamb Chop. And I've said the same thing about Russia. If the bad guys look at you and say, maybe you're not going to fight back if I use a nuke, if I invade, if I do this, if I do that. If they think maybe you're not going to fight back, then the bad guys are more likely to do the bad thing. Anyway, it's very risky. It's very risky for China. But my point is, Trump makes it more likely that China invades, I believe, because at least he sows some confusion about America's commitment to our allies. Whereas under a Democrat or under any other Republican up until now, there was never any confusion about America's commitment to our allies. We stood by our allies and we stood up to our enemies. Under Trump, you're friends with the enemies and you hate the allies. Trump hates our allies. I mean, and again, this is something that Republicans, the Trump Republicans always get upset about this stuff. Trump freaking loves our enemies. He loves Putin. He can't stand NATO. I mean, on its face, guys, he loves Kim, right? The dictator of North Korea, worst dictator in the world, probably, really. Actually, not probably. The worst dictator in the world. Trump loves the guy. Talking about, we sent love letters. He actually used the word love letters for this murderous dictator who's probably killed millions of his people in famine, okay? Starved to death millions of his people. And Trump talks about the love letters. And at the same time, talks about how he wants to take U.S. troops out of South Korea, which is helping stop the North Korean dictator from invading. No, it's disgusting. Your beautiful love letters. Absolutely disgusting. So yeah, defend the man. I just love when the Trump people defend him. Thank you, Kronos, and try to deny that he loves our enemies and he doesn't love our country. He doesn't love freedom. He hates our troops. I mean, at some point, as I say this, and I said it, we've got an election coming up. I'm not going to be quiet about it. Have some backbone. If you're going to support somebody who's basically a traitor, then admit you're a traitor yourself and you like that. I just don't understand the embarrassment among so many Trump Republicans. And again, we've got them in the comments on TikTok. Oh, that's not true. He's tough on China. Guys, come on. His daughter, he gets elected. He gets into office, and within a couple of months, his daughter gets all of these patent trademark things she was wanting from China. They give them to her. I mean, come on. He doesn't stand up to her. It's sad, but the Chinese aren't stupid. I mean, the Russians, who knows with Putin, but the Chinese aren't stupid. They know who they've got with Trump. Anyway, all right. Just a couple other things here. I may even skip that. The Germans have sent a number of tanks to the Ukrainians that the Ukrainians are sending back. This was interesting. Germany's handed over 10 Leopard 1A5 tanks, which are an older version of the tanks. A number of them the Ukrainians have refused to accept, saying they're outdated and had defects. Not good. Norway announced a new 190 million package of military aid to Ukraine. 13 more Ukrainian children returned from Russia with Qatar's assistance. These were children that the Russians kidnapped as spoils of war with the intent of basically brainwashing them into becoming Russians. They were going to give them away to Russian citizens. They literally stole Ukrainian children to give them away to Russian citizens. This is why Putin was indicted by the International Criminal Court. And finally, where is this? I'm going to quit with that. There's a couple little stories, but I don't think they're that important. All right. So, and we got our auctions, guys. Do check out the auctions. They're on Discord. They're going through next Wednesday, so we got time. But I've got a lot of auctions of really cool stuff from Ukraine that we're auctioning off. As always, I'll show you a couple things. But actually, this time, this is the last one I've got, which has been very popular. I've got a Ukrainian police badge from the Ukrainian traffic police back in the early 1990s from Kherson. At the bottom, it says HN0269. That's Kherson, the town. Very cool Ukrainian military patch. This is the last one of these that I've got. It's the flag patch of the Ukrainian military. It's Velcro. It goes like, on your uniform, like on your shoulder. These are very cool because they're the most popular patch that the Ukrainian military wear because, of course, it's the Ukrainian flag. Cool bracelet. These are all things that I'm auctioning off, most of them from Ukraine. And half the money goes back to Ukraine. Half the money goes to support me because I do this for free. So it pays my bills. Cool Ukrainian bracelet. These are always very popular and they're very cool. Vlad and Vicky picked these out. My friend Vlad in Ukraine. That's really cool. A couple other things. Actually, this is kind of fun, but it's made from juniper. Ukrainian handicraft. They make these hot pot holders, whatever, from juniper. Smells wonderful. One side's kind of cute. The other side is, this is not my taste, but it's cute. You can see the little thing there. The other side is more my taste. But they're nice because you put the hot plates on them or the, pots and things that are hot, and it gives off a scent of the wood. Trivets. Okay, trivets. The trouble with trivets. Driver, the auctions are over at Discord. You're right. I guess I should have said that, shouldn't I have? The auctions are over at our Discord community. So go over there and check it out. It's you can find my Discord community. YouTubers can go to aravosis.com, mylastname.com. You guys can also go to aravosis.com, and one of the options you'll see in the drop-down list is Discord. Click it. Or on TikTok, it's much easier just to go to my profile. Thank you, Flower Lady. Oh, another original gift from Flower Lady. I've never seen the Desert Wolf before. That's very cool. Thank you for that. Always generous and always original from Flower Lady. Go to my profile on TikTok. Look for the Linktree link, the URL. Click it, and it's a list of my links, including my Discord community. Go there. It's free, but you got to sign up. Thank you, running. Little bit of hoops to go through to verify you're a real person, and then you'll see the auctions. Anyway, that was a really nice one. But yeah, we've got a lot of cool stuff. Like I said, this time I've got about 10 different things. Actually, this has been quite popular too. Vlad sent a a whole bunch of Ukrainian candy bars and well, the top one is Swedish, but from Ukraine, Milka, but a lot of Ukrainian candy bars and chocolates. And I've got 5 of them. Thank you, Running. 5 of them I picked out in a care package that people are bidding on. They're Vlad's favorite sweets from Ukraine that he had shipped from Ukraine, which I think is kind of fun. They're Ukrainian candy bars. They're chocolate, they're wafers. There's a 71% chocolate bar. There's a nut bar that's like nuts and apricots and stuff. That's kind of a health bar. Whether it's healthy, who knows? But I think those things are fun. The chocolate's quite good. I was very surprised. Ukrainian chocolate's been excellent. I ate a bar. It was milk chocolate, which isn't always my favorite. It was very good. So, Max Track, you're winning it. I would say a number of you were very into that one. Yeah, it's like I said, I think it's fun. I don't know what makes you feel so passionate to cover this war. I get asked on TikTok. It's difficult to say because, A, not a big fan of the Russians. My formative years in America came during the Soviet years. I knew the Soviet Union I knew about the Soviet Union as a child. I studied the Soviet Union in graduate school at Georgetown in my master's program. I knew a lot about the Soviet Union. I visited the Soviet Union in 1984, and watched it crumble. The Russians aren't that different from the Soviets. It's not like it was basically the Russians changed their government, but it was still the same people. That's the first thing. So when the Russians do something and invade a neighboring country, it bothers me because I know who they are and I know what they're capable of. Secondly, I just cared about Ukraine. I don't know why. I think honestly, my family's European, so to speak. We're Greek. My mom immigrated from Greece. All my grandparents immigrated from Greece to America. Was brought up in America. You're sort of brought up with if your family's recent, you are brought up with a very sort of immigrant ethos. You're very sort of, we call ourselves hyphenated Americans, meaning I would say I'm Greek. I wouldn't say I'm American. I'd say I'm Greek American. Typically, we would say that. Italians say I'm Italian American, even if they've been here for several generations. Like Ashley, didn't your grandfather come from Italy, Ash? I think, right? I mean, a lot of people. So for me especially, I see the Ukrainians under attack, and I see a country nearby, Greece, and their fellow Europeans. They remind me of your great grandfather came from Italy. Okay, and it makes me thank you, Julian, for subscribing. Appreciate that. So yeah, it was a combination, mostly the Russians, to be honest, but also, because of I think being Greek American and seeing a European country under attack, and it's different. They're Slavs, we're not, but still, it's in the neighborhood, and I just honestly it's the Russians mostly. And also, I've been somebody who's jumped on causes for 40 years. I'm a big, thank you, Hart. I appreciate that. Oh, you are Ukrainian. Oh, thank you. Okay. I've also jumped on a lot of causes over the years. I wrote a letter in high school back in the 1970s to the Soviet dictator Brezhnev because they were mistreating Andrei Sakharov, who was a dissident. And it so angered me. I wrote him a letter. And it's funny now when I look back at it, but I mean, clearly early on, I was somebody who got pissed off and would fight back on international things. So for whatever reason, I cared. I sort of saw things going on in the world and I cared about them, even as a teenager, just whatever reason. So that's part of it too. But yeah. Anyway. Oh, you are very welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Your girlfriend is currently on the front lines as a medic. Wow. That's scary. Wow. Now, 20% of thank you, Adventures, for the gift. 20% of the Ukrainian military is female, which is very interesting. They've got one of the largest. I wonder what does anybody know what military in the world has the largest percentage of women? That's cute, Jason. I don't think I can repeat what you wrote because TikTok censors get very upset. Thank you, Blue Ariel. They take words out of context. They literally will take a sentence out of context and go, they did something much. Well, you said this word. And it's like, yeah. you if you take it out of context, sure. But it's Israel. That's interesting. That is interesting. Israel has the largest percentage of women in the military. Interesting. I wonder if Alexa is kind of dumb sometimes. I don't know. Alexa, what country has the largest percent of women in the military? I don't think she's going to get this.
Here's something I found on the web. According to Wikipedia.org, Of all the branches in the U.S. military,
No.
the Air Force has
No.
the highest percentage of female active duty service members, with women making up 21.1%.
Oh, Alexa, stop. Now that's interesting. The U.S. Air Force has 21% women. That's interesting. Active duty, but that wasn't the question, of course. Probably Israel. Yeah, probably Israel. Very interesting. Estonia, Justin says, well, if you can find it, let me know. I'm curious. North Korea. Well, North Korea is an interesting question. Except North Korea, like we know the traffic cops are all women, right? You know? Well, that's it. No, Israel has mandatory service for women. Yes. Do Sweden and Norway too? I did not know that. I did not know that. That's interesting. Estonia does not. Do Sweden and Norway have mandatory service for women? I'd be surprised. Most European countries do? Get out. Not Norway. Okay. But do any European, well, first of all, most European countries don't have mandatory service anyway. Sweden and Norway don't even have mandatory service, do they? Come on. I don't know. I'd be very surprised. Most European countries don't. Just curious. I'm asking. I don't know, Ash. I mean, but I would be very surprised that Sweden has mandatory military service. Finland does too. Interesting. Now, Finland certainly makes sense. Norway does not. Okay. Finland makes sense with bordering Russia all these years. Sweden, I'm surprised, although Sweden being non-aligned until now, I could see them being like, you know what? If we're non-aligned, maybe we need our military to be a little, our citizens to be a little more prepared. Partial mandatory conscription. Interesting. Okay. That's interesting. Swiss Guard is 0% women. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. That's interesting. Switzerland has it. That sounds vaguely familiar, Chris. Yeah, that Switzerland has it. The heir presumptive of Spain, Princess Leonor, is doing her stint in the military for Spain. That's interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Huh. Did not know that. That's very interesting. Well, that's a great question, and who knows? Yeah, Germany enters theirs in 2011. Partial for Norway. Okay, interesting. Partial. Interesting. Getting back to China, Daniel asks a good question over on YouTube. If America goes to war with China over Taiwan, what would happen if Russia attacked the Baltic states, meaning Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia at the same time? What would America do? Would America still help, or would they focus on China? And what if Russia helped in China? I mean, all of those are good questions. I mean, we wouldn't have a choice but to help if the Russians attacked the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. Trump might not help them. That's, again, that was never the case before. Now you have to ask who's the president in power as to whether America will defend NATO, defend its alliances, defend its treaties, defend its friends, or side with America's enemies. Under Donald Trump, that all changed. Previous presidents, Republican and Democrat, stood up for America, stood up for America's friends, and stood up to America's enemies. Trump said no. He recently told Putin to invade NATO. So, bets are off there. But generally speaking, Biden, for example, yeah, and most normal Republican presidents would go to war with Russia as well if Russia invaded the Baltic states. Yes. It would make the war a lot harder. Yes. If we fought on two fronts, yeah. But we wouldn't have a choice. We just wouldn't have a choice. Well, I was just going to say, Billy the Kid just said it's the same thing America did in World War II. We put troops in Asia and Europe. That's exactly it. We wouldn't have a choice, but it would be very hard. Paula says, ex-Royal Air Force, but it wasn't mandatory. Yeah, I assumed you guys weren't mandatory. I assumed. Thank you, by the way. I just saw a gift flash up. Thank you. It did one of those where it flashes up and goes off the screen. So thank you for that. What else, guys? What else? Boom. Boop, 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 boop. Key Human says if Russia attacks the Baltics, Finland jumps in and gives Putin something new to be worried about. No, that's true. The good thing now with NATO, thank you, Hedge. Very cool gift there, the couch potato. The cool thing with NATO is even if the U.S. is busy with Taiwan, you've still got the Baltic countries, Finland, Poland. I mean, all of those guys, and especially Finland and Poland are really getting involved because they're right there. They don't have a choice. And even more so, Russia decides to invade the Baltic countries, it's probably going to do a preemptive attack on the Finnish military and the Polish military, maybe even the German military, right? So if it's, even though it would make it harder for those countries to respond, it would make it necessary for those countries to respond because the Russians would have attacked. So, anyway, Monday is Memorial Day in America. I'm not doing anything, but going to have a show in principle because nothing else is, don't really have a I live in DC. None of my friends do barbecues. Hey, thank you, Ava. I don't know if the U.S. could handle both without a problem. You think so, just a guy? I don't know about that, but I don't think we'd have a choice. Again, if it's Trump, who knows? Thank you, Billy the Kid. But under normal presidents, I don't know that we'd have a choice but to do both. Taiwan, hugely important. We wouldn't have a choice there. But also Europe, I don't know how you'd avoid it. Would China head into Siberia? Who knows? Who knows? It's going to rain on Monday. Oh, that sucks. They may go into Moldova first. Yeah. Well, depending on Ukraine, right? It depends on how easy it is for them to get into Moldova. Although I suppose they could always fly if they can get over Ukraine without getting shot down. They could drop troops in. We may, Carly. Somebody asked that question earlier. Do you think we have another Russia-Ukraine type situation in China and Taiwan? Yes. Yes, it is another situation very similar in the sense that once they invade, well, even worse with Taiwan, because I think with Taiwan, unless it's Donald Trump as president, with Taiwan, America's going to war with China if they invade Taiwan, and the American people would support that. That's the real, Ukraine, we're helping the Ukrainians, but we're not going to war with Russia. We will go to war with China if they invade Taiwan. Assuming, well, let me put it this way. Depending on whether Trump's president and what he does, because he's a wild card, Biden, you've still got the Biden problem. Biden still scares me a little with Taiwan because we know this. Biden's a little chicken. I'm sure his people get pissed when I say this, but not like they ever reach out to me anyway. But he wants to do the right thing, and then he thinks twice and steps back and checks himself. So RFK Jr. literally would be like doing absolutely nothing. No, he's not going to do. Also, he's not going to be president anyway. But please, who knows? Well, that's true too. Kaliningrad, yeah, exactly. Okay, is nobody chatting on YouTube, or is it not updating? Paula's is the last comment I'm seeing. Maybe you guys aren't chatting, but I always worry when I'm not seeing updates on YouTube. It always makes me wonder, is this delaying the comments somehow or what? There you are. Now it connected. Okay, there we go. I was wondering about that. Thank you, Martin, for the gift, by the way. China has one aircraft carrier. We have dozens. Oh, RFK Jr. is a nut job. Who knows what he would do, but he sides with Russia on Ukraine and he blames Europe and America and defends the Russians invading. So, right? That's why I have no idea what he would do. He's not a serious man. I think he's crazy. He's literally crazy. He thinks polio wasn't caused by the polio vaccine, and and the polio vaccine isn't necessary. It isn't any good. The guy's a nut job. So that's why who knows what he would do with China. He has zero guys. RFK Jr.'s only experience is being an environmental advocate, which he was good at, and being an anti-vaccine nut job. Those are literally the only two things on his resume. And his name is Kennedy. That's it. So, thank you, Chuck Jennings. Appreciate you resubscribing. Thank you for that. So yeah, I would not go put America's future in the hands of a guy whose only experience is A, being good on the environment, and B, being an anti-vaccine nut job who thinks polio, isn't caused by polio and that the polio vaccine didn't do any good. He's crazy. And as Courtney said, part of his brain got eaten by a worm. That's still in his brain. That's a little freaky too. Oh, I'm sure China can give a good fight back. I'm sure they can. They're certainly preparing to. I thought China had 3. Somebody said China had 1. Yeah, and he said China had 1. I thought that China had more than 1 aircraft carriers. Yeah. So like I was saying, 3. That sounds more like what I recall. So Anyway, you already got a live with me and Yulia. You missed it, Julian. It was a couple days ago. I think it was Monday. You totally missed. We had Yulia on for like half an hour. My mom even went, she goes, who? She goes, why was there a woman on your show? My mom got a little confused as to like what was going on. I think she tuned in late or something. What's going on? You missed it. Sorry. Yeah, she was on for a good half hour, if not longer. Yeah. Sorry. Oh man. Oh, anyway. I mean, we'll do it again sometime. I'm not going to have her on every week, but yeah, she'll be back. She'll be back. I mean, basically, we were talking about it on Friday. It was too late. She was going to message me, but she forgot to message me. I wanted her to text me so we could book it. Next time, we'll plan it in advance so I can tell people. So those of you who are Yulia fans, who's a Ukrainian influencer or whatever you want to call her, but we can sort of let you know in advance so that way you can write it in your calendar what day Yulia is joining us. So you don't miss it next time. But yes, you guys demanded it and I did it, but I did it more quickly than you expected, I think. So anything else, guys? No, I didn't see that, Bagun. A Chinese mercenary talking to friends in China about fighting for Russia? No. That's interesting. She has a blackout. I invited Preston Stewart. He said no. He said that our show is on when he's taking care of his daughter or something. I didn't want to push it. I mean, I was going to tell him it's not like I couldn't do a show earlier, but he sounded like he didn't want to. So I didn't want to push it and be like, whoa, it's like asking somebody on a date and they say no. You don't want to say, well, then how about next Thursday instead of tomorrow? You know what I mean? I didn't want to push it. So I love Preston Stewart. I would love to have him on, but what do you do? Yeah, no, I would have loved to have him on. He was like, no. So I said, all right. I mean, he nicely said no, but he said no. So if you got more people, actually that other guy you guys said was good. I've got to remember to ask him. I forget his name. The other one, the former military, dark hair. He's good. I'm trying to remember who he is. Actually, Mary Trump, I'm going to reach out to, even though Mary Trump wouldn't be Ukraine. Mary Trump is a colleague, a longtime fan of my blog and other stuff. And I did several podcast interviews with her when I had my podcast. Chad Scott's the guy I'm thinking of. Yeah, Dawn, that's the one. Yep. Maybe remind me of him on Discord. Send me a note on Discord to remind me of Chad Scott, because I can at least send him a note on TikTok and say, hey, you want to come on sometime? Yep, exactly, Jillian. It's Chad Scott. Exactly. But Mary's great. Mary Trump, of course, Mary Trump would come on to talk about Trump and the election, but she's great. I had her on several times on my podcast. She's so fun. Super Hornet. Thank you. Actually, who's amazing is Rosie O'Donnell. Oh my God. That woman is so freaking smart. Oh, we had her on our podcast. Oh my God. No, I mean, I just didn't expect her to be that good. I like her, but I didn't. I mean, the woman is like, she knows her politics. She knows her history. Boy, she surprised me. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything bad, but she blew me away. How very serious, and boy, she knows her stuff. So I've got to look into that and see if I can get Rosie on. Who knows if I can. Kathy Griffin's another one. Kathy, at one point, Kathy Griffin said she'd come on. Then she was like, I'm getting too many offers, so I don't want to bother Kathy, but I may reach out at my once a year reaching out to, I mean, we follow each other on Twitter, so I can write her on Twitter. But, I may try to reach out to Kathy again and go, come on, Kath. It's my once a year ask if you want to come on the show. Again, she would be talking about Trump and elections and American politics, but she's a comedian, very smart, very acerbic, and very good. She's very good. Her Trump impression, I don't even remember her Trump impression. That's funny. I can only imagine, though. Your niece will be a member of parliament? Where's that? Is that what you mean, Mark? Or does MP mean something else? Oh, where is that? Whoopi would be amazing. I don't know Whoopi. I'd love to have Whoopi. I'll try with Rosie again. Why not? I mean, because again, we haven't done it on TikTok, but Rosie was amazing. Jon Stewart. I love Jon Stewart, but I don't know how to get to Jon Stewart. Chad would be too slow. Can you imagine if Chad talked slowly the way I talk? It'd be like, ah. That's funny. I'm not a fan, Ryan. Let's just leave it at that. So no, no. I like reaching out to the military guys. I respect the military guys. If you're a civilian doing Ukraine content, I've got a much higher standard. If you better be Yulia, who's a Ukrainian who knows stuff, or again, people who have nothing to do at all with Ukraine, but Rosie O'Donnell, Kathy Griffin are interesting people. Mary Trump, interesting people. But otherwise, yeah. As I said, not a fan. So we'll leave it at that. Yeah, I'll reach out to Rosie. Why not? Why not? Assuming TikTok hasn't screwed everything up, because TikTok was nice because basically Rosie followed me, Kathy Griffin followed me. I could direct message them, and then TikTok made it so you could only direct message other verified, all this bullshit that Elon did that screwed up TikTok, which was too bad. But, Rosie versus Trump, I can only imagine. Oops, there we go. Adjusting my lighting a little bit. Anyway, well, I'm about to wrap up, guys. We've been doing this an hour and a half. I don't remember her Trump impression at all. Yeah. I don't know what I said. I meant Twitter. Maybe I didn't say Twitter, Amanda. Yeah, on Twitter. Elon screwed it up. Maybe I said TikTok. Twitter. Yes. He screwed it up big time. But yeah, Rosie's just scary smart with like all the stuff. I said TikTok. Okay. All the history and the detail. I mean, Rosie was like, I've got my podcast is still out there somewhere of her, but she just was like bringing up you got to go back to Trump in 2016 and Trump in 2012 when he said this, and like just this like encyclopedic memory of things and dates. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, like, I don't remember that kind of stuff. That's what impressed me. I didn't expect much from her. She knew so much more than I did about so many details and so many dates that I was like, oh my God, this woman's like a genius when it comes to politics. So amazing. Thank you, Steph, for the hearts. Anyway, yes, I meant Elon messed up Twitter. Exactly, not TikTok. Anyway, thank you, R19. Appreciate that. Thank you, User336, for the gifts, and Steph for the ruse. Anyway, all right, guys, I think we're going to wrap up. Again, I usually wrap up if we go for an hour and a half. I like to wrap up at that point because don't want to repeat my experience of the first year we did this when I was going 7 days a week and I lost my voice. Although I still think I lost my voice because it was a flu or something that was going around. Thank you, Luis, for the mustache. Yeah, Elon saved Twitter if you're a neo-NZ. Literally, he just brought. I'm afraid to even say the guy's name. Elon just brought back on Twitter a famous American neo-NZ anti-Semite, Holocaust-denying, horrific, racist pig. And I'm afraid to even say the guy's name because TikTok is so weird about their censorship that I'm not even going to say the guy's name. It's so disgusting what Elon Musk did to Twitter. Absolutely disgusting. It's not when we're talking about literally neo-NZs, it's not my opinion, right? You don't get to agree to disagree about how good it is to give literally American neo-NZs who think blacks and Jews are inferior races to get them back on Twitter to amplify their voice. No, you don't get to disagree. Yeah, it's literally not an opinion. It means you're a bad human being if you disagree on that point. It's not an opinion at all. Zero opinion in that case. Yeah. All right. Anyway. Yeah, Anton's good. Actually, we could get Anton on the show. I like Anton. We had communicated at one point. I wouldn't mind having Anton on at some point. Talk about his animal rescue. That'd be great. Yeah. Yeah, that would be fun, actually. I wouldn't mind that. All right, guys. I'm going to get going. Emil, I don't know what you're asking. Or are you asking somebody else if you can say a name? I don't think so. I don't even know. Anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to hang up here. All right, so thank you, everybody. I'm not going to do the summary. When we go an hour and a half, I don't do the news summary. All right, Martin, I will do a very quick news summary because Martin said some people missed it. I'll be on Monday at this point. Yeah. All right, thank you, Jeremy, for the gift. All right, let me do the quick news summary. All right. since folks came late. I always forget that this is useful for some people. All right. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said NATO countries should reconsider their policies of forbidding Ukraine from using NATO weapons to attack targets on Russian soil. Vladimir Putin says he's ready, or his aides say he's ready to halt the war in Ukraine with a ceasefire if Ukraine gives up all of its territory and Zelensky resigns. So, yeah, that's not going to happen. Russian forces launched attacks against Kharkiv yesterday, killing at least 7 people, injuring at least 20 others. Russian troops are completely bogged down in street battles in northeastern Ukraine near Kharkiv, according to Ukrainian sources. The Russians have suffered heavy losses. That's a good turn of events. Political reports, the first batch of Ukrainian pilots have graduated from F-16 training in Arizona and are now heading to Europe for their final training. The New York Times reports that Secretary Blinken at our State Department is now thinking maybe it's not a good idea that we don't let Ukraine attack Russian territory with our weapons. So that's nice, but he's one man, which doesn't really change things. Hungary wants a new arrangement with NATO where it can basically do whatever the hell it wants. And honestly, Hungary needs to leave NATO at this point. We get a hell of a lot. They get a hell of a lot more from us than we get. We get nothing from them. Who cares about Hungarians? Frankly, I'm sorry, but I'm sure it's a nice country of people that elect bad men, although we do too. But, you know, for NATO, I want the British army. I want the American army. I want the Polish army. I couldn't give a damn about the Hungarian army. United States announced a new military package for Ukraine of $275 million. Ukraine hit Russian S-400 air defense system and destroyed it the other day. That was great news. Great video flying around the net right now. Russia has deployed its, I didn't mention this, its Africa Corps to the Kharkiv area, so that the attacks that Russia's doing around Kharkiv and Vovchansk, they've now brought some of their Africa Corps troops, which are their former Wagner guys, which is interesting because honestly, it almost suggests that things may not be going so well if they're doing that, but that's good news. Russia's been mucking with this Estonian border. Russian border guards went and removed the buoys used to mark the water border between Estonia and Russia just because they wanted to be jerks. Literally, it's like something a child would do. Berlin has given a number of new weapons to Ukraine, including 10 Leopard 1A5 tanks, several of which were so old and outdated that the Ukrainians turned them back because they were damaged. Norway announced a new weapons package of $190 million. 13 more Ukrainian children returned from Russia where they were being held hostage by the Russians. And finally, actually, I didn't mention this story, but finally, the Russians, after 2 months, have finally admitted that it was ISIS that did the attack in Moscow in March of this year when they did that horrific attack on the shopping mall where they went there was a concert there going on as well. They killed over 140 people, and the Russian government lied and claimed it was America, Britain, and Ukraine that did it when everybody knew it was ISIS, when we warned them ISIS was coming, when 3 days before the attack, Putin came out and criticized America and Britain for publicly warning that ISIS was getting ready to attack, or getting ready that terrorists were getting ready to attack Russia. We even told them that that venue was one of the places they might be attacking 3 days before Putin said it's not true. And then they attacked and killed 140 Russians. So what did the Russians do? Rather than go and investigate ISIS and try to fix the problem, they blamed it on Ukraine, America, and Britain. Finally, 2 months later, the Russians finally admitted that, oh, I guess it was ISIS, but my favorite line was, but the Ukrainians coordinated it. It was like, are you just children? Like, seriously? Do you even believe your own propaganda? I'm telling you, it's like we're dealing with 13-year-old children over there sometimes, 13-year-old boys. You know, it's just amazing. Anyway, that is the news wrap up. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the gifts tonight. A lot of cool gifts on TikTok. Remember, tomorrow morning, we've got everyone who is a monthly subscriber, join us for the show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time US on TikTok and YouTube, and Discord. And Sunday morning, I will be on Disc. Actually, I'll set up a $24.99 category on TikTok right now. Why not? Sunday, I do a once a month get together for the $25 subscribers, monthly subscribers, which is only a few. Thank you, Joker. But as a thank you, there's only a handful of those, but we'll be meeting Sunday at 11 a.m. So you guys join us as well. Like I said, I'll set one of those up on TikTok right now, just in case. You never know. Somebody might sign up. Can't hurt. Otherwise, thank you guys. Thank you, Joker, for the gift. Thank you, user336 and Jack for your thank yous. And I will see you guys on Monday. Otherwise, thank you, Martin, for the Galaxy. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Monday, 6 o'clock. All right. But again, paid subscribe. There's the Galaxy. I was wondering where it was, Martin. It said Martin did the Galaxy. And I went, where is it? There it is. Thank you, Joker, for the lightning bolt. And otherwise, once the gifts stop, I will sign off. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. All right. Have a good night, everybody. I'm going to sign off YouTube first and then see some of you tomorrow. Boom. Boom. There it is. All right.